So why is digital marketing getting such attention right now? Well, there's a lot of reasons. One of the reasons is that is a very low-cost access to media. I remember way back when we talked about advertising, that ancient art of communicating with customers. We had talked about, in the traditional Mad Men type advertising era, the content or the creative, they called it at that time, was about 15% of the advertising budget, and media was 85%. The vast majority of a traditional advertising budget involves buying access to the customer. In the digital world, access is essentially free. I mean, if you have a connection to the internet, you have access. So it kind of changes things around, rather than the major emphasis being on, paying for access to customers. It frees up all of that 85% of the budget to focus on what we want to say, how we want to say it, looking at ways to reach customers. Because of this, it's a very fertile area for startups or small businesses that don't have any budget, but have a lot of creativity. We talked earlier about guerrilla marketing, where, in my opinion, a guerrilla ad is 5% of money, 95% of creativity. That would also describe an approach to internet marketing for a small business or a startup. Access is relatively free, and if you can be creative, if you can get people's attention, you win. Another issue is immediacy. You get customer feedback 24/7. You need to monitor what's going on with customer feedback. It's instant. I was experimenting with posting some videos from this class on YouTube, and before I had the first one posted, I had 15 comments on the or before I had the second one posted, I had 15 comments on the first one. It's just, and from that's different than the traditional marketing approach, where we sit back and down and we think, what do we need to say to the customer, and we carefully craft this message and test the message, and then we send it out and we look for feedback. It's like, today is let's get the message out there and work with customers to figure out what's going to work. I think Facebook has that encapsulated with the concept of fail fast. Get out there, try things. If it works, continue doing it. If it doesn't work, don't stop doing it. But you don't need to have that long lead time. You can have instant feedback. And again, one of the additional advantages of the internet digital marketing, because feedback is instantaneous and because access is very inexpensive, it's possible to do what they call optimization. And optimization is just continually tweaking what you're doing in order to improve the result. The most common way of doing that is A/B testing. And again, when you have hundreds, thousands, or tens of thousands, or millions of visits every day, I can put out a version of an ad in red and a version of the ad in blue, see which one pulls better. I can use one where I use capital letters in my language. I can use one where I use lowercase letters in my language, but I can make all of these small incremental changes and see which one plays better. And just as we continually evolve, you eventually get something that is close to optimum, but it's never perfect because you're always tweaking, always trying to find it better. So you can do literally thousands or tens of thousands of experiments in a day. Another big advantage is interactivity. The good news is, I guess the good news and the bad news is customers have a voice. In the olden days, the conventional wisdom used to be never get into an argument with somebody who buys ink by the barrel, which meant that you as an individual consumer had no chance of talking back if something was in the media that you didn't like. Today, with network effects, with social media, consumers have a voice just as strong and sometimes stronger than marketers, especially because consumer voices are perceived as far more credible than marketer voices. The positive side of this is there's an opportunity for customers to help you develop the product, help you come up with content, help you explain why your product is so good. There's a term they're using now in branding called brand advocate, where you have your very high volume, your very involved users, which are actually people willing to speak out on behalf of your brand, especially if somebody, an internet troll says something negative about your favorite brand, they will step in and defend it without you having to do it. It's that level of engagement. Another big difference is, remember, way back when we talked about segmentation strategies, and we talked about the most common approach to segmentation in marketing is demographic segmentation. And the reason demographic segmentation is so common in traditional marketing is because demographic differences are easy to observe and lead to meaningful differences in needs, so you could use that as a segmentation variable. We touched briefly on behavioral segmentation, looking at how customers interact with products as a way of segmenting, but that's hard to do because it's hard to get that data. Well, in digital marketing, it's just the opposite. With cookies and various tracking, I know very well what your behavior is, but I don't know who you are. So I know that somebody visited this site, that site, spent 15 seconds on this site, watched the first 3 seconds of that video, clicked past the pre-roll, and then went on to, but I have no idea who you are. So demographic segmentation in digital marketing is a challenge. Behavioral segmentation, which can be much more effective, is much easier to do in digital world.